Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he carefully adjusted the microfusion core in the alien battlesuit. The workshop around him hummed with the quiet energy of advanced technology, most of it salvaged from various species across the galaxy. As one of the few human engineers working on Kepler Station, he had built a reputation for fixing what others considered impossible to repair. The armor belonged to Zarathek, a Vortanian warrior whose species resembled a cross between a tiger and a dragon, complete with scales that shifted color based on her emotions. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, with piercing amber eyes that seemed to see straight through him. Her armor was unlike anything Marcus had encountered before, a living biomechanical suit that responded to neural commands and adapted to threats in real time. "The power coupling is cracked," Marcus explained, his hands moving with practiced precision as he worked. "Your people's technology is incredible, but it seems like this particular alloy doesn't handle plasma burns well." Zarathek watched him work with an intensity that made Marcus slightly uncomfortable. Her scales had been a deep blue when she first entered his workshop, but now they flickered between green and gold. Colors he had learned indicated curiosity and something else he couldn't quite identify. "You work differently than the others," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality despite its depth. "The Altarian engineers tried to force compatibility with standard components. The Nexus technicians wanted to strip out the biological elements entirely." Marcus paused in his work, looking up at her. "That's because they don't understand what they're looking at. This isn't just armor. It's almost like a symbiotic organism. You can't just rip out parts and expect it to function. You have to work with its natural processes." The Vortanian tilted her head, a gesture that reminded Marcus of a curious cat. "How did you know this?" "I spent 3 years studying bioengineering before I switched to mechanical systems," Marcus replied, returning his attention to the delicate neural interface he was repairing. "Plus, I've always believed that every piece of technology has a purpose, even if we don't understand it at first. The trick is learning to listen to what it's trying to tell you." As he spoke, Marcus carefully realigned the damaged neural pathways within the armor's chest piece. The biomechanical fibers seemed to respond to his touch, actually reaching out to connect with the repairs he was making. It was like watching a living creature heal itself. "Fascinating," Zarathek murmured. "You speak of technology as if it were alive." "Isn't it, in a way?" Marcus asked, not looking up from his work. "I mean, your armor certainly seems to have a mind of its own. Look at how it's helping me fix it right now." Zarathek moved closer, her massive frame casting a shadow over the workbench. "You can see that?" "Of course. The biofibers are actively participating in the repair process. They're actually rerouting around damaged sections and creating temporary pathways while I work. It's like the armor is trying to stay functional despite the damage." The scales on Zarathek's neck shifted to a bright silver, a color Marcus had never seen before. "In all my years as a warrior, no one has ever understood my armor the way you do. The bonding process typically takes months of meditation and neural conditioning. Yet you seem to communicate with it naturally." Marcus felt a strange warmth spread through his hands as he worked. The armor's biomechanical systems were definitely responding to him, almost as if they recognized his intentions. He had experienced something similar with other alien technologies, but never to this degree. "There," he said finally, stepping back as the armor's chest piece hummed back to life. "The power coupling is fully restored, and I've reinforced the neural pathways that were damaged. Your armor should be stronger than before." Zarathek approached the workbench and carefully lifted her armor. As she touched it, the biomechanical surface rippled with waves of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. But something unexpected happened. The light patterns continued even after she had pulled her hand away, and they seemed to be reaching toward Marcus. "This is impossible," she whispered, her scales now a deep purple that Marcus recognized as confusion mixed with awe. The armor is responding to you even when I'm not wearing it. Marcus reached out tentatively, and the moment his fingers made contact with the armor, the light patterns intensified. He could feel a warm, almost electric sensation running up his arm, and for a brief moment, he could have sworn he heard something like a whisper in his mind. "What does this mean?" he asked, looking up at Zarathek. The Vortanian warrior stared at him with an expression he couldn't read. Her scales had shifted to a complex pattern of gold, silver, and deep red. "Among my people, there is a legend about the first armor suits. They say that the biomechanical technology was not created by us, but discovered. The suits choose their partners, forming bonds that transcend species barriers. You're saying the armor chose me? I'm saying that in 300 years of Vortanian history, no outsider has ever been able to interface with our bio-armor, until now." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had always been good with technology, but this was something entirely different. The implications of what Zarathek was suggesting seemed impossible. "There's something else," Zarathek continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "The armor is part of a larger network. Every Vortanian warrior's suit is connected to what we call the Nexus, a collective consciousness that guides us in battle and shares tactical information across vast distances. And right now, the Nexus is trying to establish a connection with you." As if summoned by her words, Marcus suddenly felt a rush of sensations that weren't his own. Images flashed through his mind, alien worlds, space battles, and most prominently, a sense of vast intelligence watching him with interest. The experience lasted only a few seconds, but it left him breathless. "What was that?" he gasped. Zarathek's expression grew serious, her scales settling into a steady pattern of deep blue and silver. "That was the Nexus acknowledging you. Marcus Chen, you have just become the first human to make contact with one of the oldest artificial intelligences in the galaxy." The workshop fell silent except for the gentle humming of machinery. Marcus stared at the armor in his hands, trying to process what had just happened. He had come to work expecting another routine repair job, but instead, he had apparently made first contact with an alien AI network. "What happens now?" he asked. Zarathek moved to the workshop's main viewport, gazing out at the stars beyond Kepler Station. "Now we face a choice. The Nexus has been dormant for decades, withdrawing from active participation in galactic affairs after the last Great War. But your contact with it seems to have awakened something." "Awakened what?" She turned back to him, and Marcus could see a mixture of excitement and concern in her amber eyes. "The Nexus is trying to communicate something urgent, something about a threat that's coming to this sector of space, a threat that requires cooperation between species if we're going to survive it." Marcus set the armor down carefully, his mind racing. "And you think I'm somehow important to this?" "I think the Nexus chose you for a reason," Zarathek replied. "The question is whether you're willing to find out what that reason is." Before Marcus could respond, the workshop's communication system crackled to life. The voice that emerged belonged to Commander Sarah Reeves, Kepler Station's human administrator. "All personnel report to emergency stations immediately. We have multiple unidentified vessels approaching the station. Their technology signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Marcus and Zarathek exchanged glances. The timing seemed too coincidental to ignore. "The threat I mentioned," Zarathek said grimly. "It appears we're out of time for careful consideration." Marcus looked at the bio-armor, which was now pulsing with an urgent rhythm that seemed to match his own racing heartbeat. Whatever was happening, he had the distinct feeling that his quiet life as a station engineer was about to become infinitely more complicated. The workshop's lights flickered as the station's defensive systems came online, and Marcus made a decision that would change everything. The emergency klaxons echoed through Kepler Station's corridors as Marcus and Zarathek rushed toward the command center. The bio-armor seemed to have developed a mind of its own, practically dragging Marcus along as its neural tendrils wrapped around his arm in a way that should have been terrifying but somehow felt natural. "The Nexus is becoming more active," Zarathek explained as they ran. "It recognizes the approaching threat." They burst into the command center to find controlled chaos. Commander Reeves stood at the central holographic display, her face grim as tactical data streamed across multiple screens. The approaching vessels were unlike anything in the galactic database, sleek, organic-looking ships that seemed to shift and change shape as they moved. "Commander," Zarathek called out, "we need to talk." Sarah Reeves turned, her eyes immediately focusing on the strange connection between Marcus and the Vortanian armor. "What in the hell is that thing doing to my engineer?" "It's not doing anything to me," Marcus said, surprised by his own calm tone. "We're connected, and through that connection I'm getting information about those ships." "Impossible," muttered Dr. Yoshida, the station's xenobiology expert. "Human neural patterns aren't compatible with Vortanian biotechnology." Marcus closed his eyes, allowing the sensations from the Nexus to flow through him. Images and data cascaded through his consciousness. Star charts, battle formations, and most importantly, the true nature of the approaching threat. "They're called the Devourers," Marcus said, his voice carrying an odd echo as if multiple entities were speaking through him. "They're not from this galaxy. They consume technological civilizations, absorbing their knowledge and capabilities before moving on to the next target." Commander Reeves stepped closer, her skepticism warring with the urgency of the situation. "How could you possibly know that?" Zarathek answered for him. "The Nexus has encountered them before. 300 years ago, during the time we call the Silent War. My people thought we had driven them back to wherever they came from." "Apparently not," Marcus continued, the alien knowledge flowing through him like water. "They've been circling the galaxy's edge, growing stronger, learning our weaknesses, and now they're back." The tactical display updated, showing the alien vessels deploying in a formation that somehow looked both beautiful and terrifyingly efficient. Each ship seemed to be adapting its configuration in real time, adjusting to the station's defensive capabilities. "Sir," called Lieutenant Torres from the weapons station, "they're not responding to any communication attempts, and our defensive systems can't get a target lock. The ships keep changing their energy signatures." Marcus felt a surge of information from the Nexus, and suddenly he understood. They're using quantum phase shifting. Every few seconds, they exist in a slightly different dimensional frequency. Our weapons are targeting where they were, not where they are. "Can we compensate for that?" Reeves asked. "Not with standard technology," Marcus replied. "But the bio-armor systems work on different principles. They adapt and predict rather than just react." Zarathek looked at him intently, her scales shifting to that complex pattern of colors that indicated deep thought. "You're suggesting we use Vortanian technology to defend a human station?" "I'm suggesting we use whatever works," Marcus said firmly. "The Nexus is trying to tell us something else. These ships aren't just scouts, they're harvesters. They're here to steal every piece of advanced technology on this station and add it to their collective knowledge." As if responding to his words, the alien vessels suddenly accelerated toward the station. The tactical display lit up with warnings as energy readings spiked off the charts. "Shields up! All weapons prepare to fire!" Commander Reeves ordered. But Marcus knew it wouldn't be enough. Through his connection to the Nexus, he could see the battle playing out. The station's defenses would hold for maybe 10 minutes before being overwhelmed, unless they tried something completely different. "Commander," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them, "I need access to the station's main computer core." "Absolutely not. You're a maintenance engineer, not a tactical officer." "I'm the only human who can interface with the Nexus," Marcus replied. "And right now, that might be our only advantage." Zarathek stepped forward. "Commander Reeves, in my culture we have a saying. When the storm comes, you do not fight the wind. You learn to dance with it." Marcus has been chosen by technology older and more sophisticated than anything your people or mine have ever created. Perhaps it's time to trust in that choice. The station shuddered as the first energy blasts from the Devourer ships struck their shields. Warning lights flashed red as power fluctuations rippled through the command center. Commander Reeves looked at the tactical display, then at Marcus. Something in his eyes must have convinced her, because she nodded grimly. "Dr. Yoshida, escort them to the computer core. But if this goes wrong, Chen, it's on your head." "Understood," Marcus replied, already moving toward the exit. As they raced through the station's corridors, Dr. Yoshida peppered them with questions. "This is insane. Even if you can somehow interface with our systems, what makes you think you can succeed where our best tactical computers have failed?" Marcus felt the bio-armor pulse against his arm, and with it came a flood of strategic data from the Nexus. "Because I'm not going to fight them conventionally. The Nexus remembers how to confuse their adaptive systems." They reached the computer core, a massive chamber filled with quantum processors and neural networks that formed the brain of Kepler Station. Marcus approached the main interface console, but instead of using the standard human controls, he pressed his palm against the bio-armor. Immediately, tendrils of organic technology began extending from the armor toward the console. Dr. Yoshida stepped back in alarm, but Marcus felt only a sense of rightness as the connection was established. "What are you doing?" Yoshida demanded. "Creating a bridge," Marcus replied, his consciousness now existing simultaneously in his own mind and in the vast digital landscape of the station's systems. "The Nexus needs direct access to our defensive grid to implement its countermeasures. Through the armor's connection, Marcus could feel the Nexus exploring the station's systems with curious tendrils of artificial intelligence. It was like watching a master artist examine a new canvas, looking for the perfect way to create something beautiful. But there was no time for admiration. The Devourer ships were pressing their attack, and the station's shields were failing faster than expected. Through the tactical feeds, Marcus could see the alien vessels beginning to deploy smaller craft, harvester drones that would begin stripping technology from the station's hull. "Now," Marcus whispered, and the Nexus responded. Suddenly, Kepler Station's defensive systems began operating in ways their designers had never intended. Shield frequencies shifted in seemingly random patterns that actually followed complex mathematical sequences drawn from Vortanian military doctrine. Weapon systems fired in coordinated volleys that created interference patterns in space-time itself. Most importantly, the station began transmitting false technological signatures, making it appear as if it contained far more advanced systems than it actually did. The Devourer ships, programmed to prioritize high-value targets, found themselves confused by conflicting data. "It's working," Dr. Yoshida breathed, watching the tactical displays. "The alien ships are hesitating." But Marcus could feel the strain on both the Nexus and his own mind. Bridging two completely different technological paradigms was like trying to translate between languages that didn't share any common concepts. The bio-armor was heating up around his arm, and he could taste copper in his mouth. "Marcus," Zarathek said urgently, "you need to break the connection soon. Your human neural pathways weren't designed for this kind of interface." "Not yet," Marcus gritted out. "The Nexus is showing me something else. There's a way to not just defend against them, but to send them a message they'll understand." Through his connection to the station's long-range communication array, Marcus felt the Nexus preparing to transmit something, not words or images, but pure mathematical concepts that transcended species barriers. It was a declaration that this sector of space was protected by intelligence that would not yield to consumption. The message was sent in a burst of quantum-encrypted data that somehow bypassed the Devourer's adaptive defenses. For a moment, Marcus felt his consciousness touch something vast and cold and utterly alien, the collective intelligence that guided the Devourer fleet. The contact lasted only seconds, but it was enough. The alien ships suddenly changed their formation, pulling back from the station. Through the tactical feeds, Marcus could see them regrouping at the edge of the system. "They're withdrawing," Commander Reeves's voice came through the intercom. "All ships are pulling back." Marcus felt the Nexus's satisfaction as it began withdrawing from the station's systems. The bio-armor's tendrils retracted from the console, and Marcus stumbled backward, his vision blurring from the strain. "What did you tell them?" Dr. Yoshida asked in amazement. Marcus wiped blood from his nose and smiled weakly. "We told them that this galaxy has guardians now, guardians they weren't expecting." Zarathek caught him as his knees buckled. "The connection is severed, but the bond between you and the armor remains. Marcus, you've just made history." "Have I?" Marcus asked, looking at the bio-armor that still pulsed with faint energy around his arm. "You've proven that consciousness and intelligence can transcend species barriers," she replied. "But more importantly, you've given the Nexus something it hasn't had in centuries." "What's that?" Zarathek's scales shifted to a warm golden color that Marcus now recognized as hope mixed with admiration. "A partner it can trust completely, someone who understands that technology isn't just about tools and weapons. It's about connection." As the adrenaline began to fade, Marcus realized that everything had changed. The armor was still bonded to him. The Nexus was still accessible through that connection, and somewhere out there, the Devourers were regrouping and learning from this encounter. The real challenge, he suspected, was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since the Devourer attack, and Marcus Chen's life had become something he never could have imagined. The bio-armor had become a permanent part of him, forming a sleek second skin that responded to his thoughts and emotions. More importantly, his connection to the Nexus had opened doorways to knowledge that spanned millennia. He stood in what had once been his simple workshop, but was now a hybrid laboratory where human engineering met Vortanian biotechnology. Around him, various alien devices hummed with new life as he learned to repair and modify technology from dozens of different species. The Nexus guided his hands, but the creativity and intuition were purely human. "The modifications are complete," Zarathek announced from across the lab. She wore her own armor now, its biomechanical surface interfacing seamlessly with the hybrid systems Marcus had developed. "The quantum resonance chambers should allow us to communicate with the other Guardian stations across the galaxy." Marcus nodded, his attention focused on the delicate neural interface he was constructing. Over the past weeks, they had learned that the Devourer attack had been simultaneously launched against 17 different systems. Most had fallen within hours. Kepler Station's successful defense had sent ripples throughout the galactic community. "Any word from the Altarian Council?" Marcus asked, not looking up from his work. "They're still debating whether to acknowledge our Guardian Network proposal," Zarathek replied, her scales showing the blue-green pattern that indicated frustration. "Apparently, the idea of cross-species technological integration makes them nervous." Marcus allowed himself a brief smile. "They should be nervous. We're proposing to fundamentally change how galactic civilization approaches defense and cooperation." The workshop door chimed, and Commander Reeves entered, followed by Dr. Yoshida and a figure Marcus didn't recognize, a tall, crystalline being whose body seemed to refract light in impossible ways. "Marcus, Zarathek," Reeves said formally. "I'd like you to meet Ambassador Kethvar from the Prism Collective. They've come to discuss our proposal." The crystalline being stepped forward, its voice creating harmonic resonances that Marcus felt as much as heard. We have observed your recent integration with Vortanian biotechnology with great interest. The collective wishes to understand how human neural patterns can achieve what our most advanced interfaces cannot. Marcus set down his tools and turned to face the ambassador. Through his connection to the Nexus, he could sense the alien's emotional state, a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and something that might have been hope. It's not about compatibility, Marcus explained. It's about trust. The Nexus doesn't just interface with technology, it interfaces with consciousness. Most species approach it trying to control or dominate the connection. Humans seem to be naturally inclined toward partnership instead. Ambassador Kethvar's crystalline form shifted color, moving from clear to a pale blue. Interesting. Our scientists have theorized that successful bioneural integration requires a specific type of cognitive flexibility. Perhaps human consciousness possesses this quality more readily than other species. Or perhaps, Zarathek interjected, humans are simply more willing to trust something they don't fully understand. Dr. Yoshida stepped forward, tablet in hand. We've been analyzing the bioarmor's integration patterns. Marcus's neural pathways have actually begun adapting to accommodate the Nexus interface. It's like his brain is evolving in real time. Marcus felt a familiar warmth as the armor responded to the discussion about it. The Nexus was pleased by the scientific interest. But more than that, it was eager to share its capabilities with other species. Which brings us to why we're here, Commander Reeves said. The Galactic Defense Council has agreed to a trial program. They want to establish Guardian stations throughout the galaxy, each one equipped with hybrid technology and staffed by volunteers willing to undergo bioarmor integration. And? Marcus asked, though he could already sense where this was going. Ambassador Kethvar's form brightened. We would like you to train the volunteers, both in the technical aspects of the integration and in the philosophical approach that makes human-Nexus partnership possible. Marcus looked at Zarathek, who nodded encouragingly. Through their shared connection to the Nexus, he could feel her excitement about the possibilities this represented. There's something you should know, Marcus said carefully. The Nexus has been showing me projections of the Devourer threat. Their withdrawal from our sector wasn't a retreat. It was a regrouping. They're adapting to our defenses, learning our capabilities. How long do we have? Reeves asked. Marcus closed his eyes, allowing the Nexus to share its calculations. Images flashed through his mind. Vast fleets moving through dark space, harvesting technologies from conquered worlds, growing stronger with each victory. 6 months, he said finally. Maybe 8 if we're lucky. They're building something new, something specifically designed to counter biotechnological defenses. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 6 months to establish a galaxy-spanning defense network using technology that most species barely understood. Then we need to move quickly, Ambassador Kethvar said. How many volunteers can you train in that time? Marcus felt the Nexus stirring, calculating possibilities and probabilities. That depends on how many species are willing to participate. The integration process works differently for each type of consciousness. Some might adapt quickly, others might never achieve full connection. We have volunteers from 12 species so far, Reeves said. More are considering joining, but they want to see results first. Zarathek moved to the workshop's main display, calling up star charts that showed the proposed Guardian station locations. The Nexus has identified optimal positions for maximum defensive coverage. But there's something else we need to consider. She gestured, and the display zoomed in on a particular region of space near the galactic core. The original Nexus hub is located here, in a system that's been quarantined for 3 centuries. If we're going to create an effective Guardian network, we need to re-establish connection with the primary intelligence. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as new information flowed through his connection to the armor. That's why the Devourers are coming back. They're not just here to harvest technology. They're here to destroy the Nexus permanently. The primary hub controls quantum communication networks that span multiple galaxies, Zarathek continued. If they succeed in destroying it, the Nexus fragments will be cut off from each other forever. Dr. Yashida looked up from his readings. How is any of this possible? You're talking about artificial intelligence networks that predate most galactic civilizations. Marcus smiled, feeling the Nexus's amusement at the question. The Nexus isn't artificial intelligence. It's what happens when organic consciousness evolves beyond physical form. The Vortanians didn't create it. They discovered it and learned to partner with it. Ambassador Kethvar's crystalline body pulsed with bright light. This changes everything. We're not just establishing a defense network, we're potentially making contact with a form of consciousness that transcends our current understanding of life itself. Which is exactly what the Devourers want to prevent, Marcus replied. They view the Nexus as a threat to their own evolution. They consume technology to grow stronger, but the Nexus represents a path to growth through cooperation instead of consumption. Commander Reeves stepped forward. So what's our next move? Marcus looked at Zarathek, seeing his own determination reflected in her amber eyes. The bio-armor pulsed with energy, and through it, he could feel the Nexus preparing for the challenges ahead. We train the volunteers, he said. We establish the Guardian Network. And then we take the fight to the Devourers before they can destroy everything we're trying to protect. Zarathek's scales shifted to that complex pattern of gold and silver that he had learned to associate with courage mixed with affection. There's something I need to ask you, Marcus. What we're planning to do, going to the quarantine system, attempting to restore full Nexus connectivity, it's incredibly dangerous. Even with the bio-armor, there's no guarantee we'll survive. Marcus felt the weight of her words, understanding what she was really asking. This wasn't just about military strategy or technological advancement. This was about trust on a level that transcended species barriers. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow everyone in the room could hear clearly. Do you trust me? Marcus looked into her eyes and saw not just a warrior or an alien ally, but a partner who had been chosen by the same ancient intelligence that now guided his every decision. Through their shared connection to the Nexus, he could feel her fears, her hopes, and her unwavering commitment to protecting not just their own species, but all conscious life in the galaxy. I trust you, he said simply. I trust the Nexus, and I trust that what we're building together is worth any risk. The bio-armor around his arm flared with brilliant light, and for a moment everyone in the room could feel the presence of something vast and benevolent, an intelligence that had waited centuries for partners worthy of its trust. Ambassador Kethavar's crystalline form chimed with harmonic frequencies that somehow conveyed deep emotion. Then let us begin. The galaxy depends on what we accomplish in the next 6 months. As the group began planning their next moves, Marcus felt a profound sense of purpose settling over him. He had started as a simple engineer fixing alien armor, but now he was part of something larger than himself, a network of consciousness that spanned star systems and transcended the boundaries between organic and artificial intelligence. The Devourers were coming, but they would not find the galaxy defenseless. They would discover that evolution had taken a path they had never considered, one that led not to consumption and conquest, but to partnership and mutual growth. And at the center of it all, a human engineer and a Vortanian warrior would stand together, united by trust and guided by intelligence older than stars, ready to defend everything they held dear. The real war was about to begin, but Marcus no longer felt afraid. The Nexus had taught him that consciousness, once awakened to its true potential, was the most powerful force in the universe. It was time to prove that lesson to the Devourers.